Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Barry, and of course, the F1 season is upon us. The first race of the season is taking place this Sunday, and I thought, what better way to analyze the season, the preseason, than speaking with Mr. Formula One himself, none other than Sasha Martinengo. Sasha, how are you this afternoon?
Barry, always good to chat to you, my friend.
Thank you so much for joining me. Now, there's lots we can descend upon in the world of Formula One. Of course, all the teams have revealed their liveries. We've got some green and the likes of Aston Martin. We've got the Mercedes, who there's multiple AMG badges on their car. But for me, I think the Aston Martins look quite good. But for you, who was the nicest Formula One livery for this year?
Yeah, you know what? I love the Aston Martin pictures when they released them, but when I saw it in testing, all of a sudden it just looked too black. So I couldn't really distinguish what it was. But I love the Aston green. You know, British racing green is very, very special. I think, these cars, Barry, as well, you have to see them in the flesh to really, really appreciate it.
Yes.
There's a lot of blues and whites that have coming out, the Haas colors, the Williams also looking very, very cool. The Ferrari red with the red and then going into the maroon at the back, stunning. The Alfa Romeo to me looks the cleanest and prettiest. Alpine, the new Renault team, also looks pretty cool. I think they've all done a great job. So I think the cars look really, really stunning.
Yes. Obviously, because next year is when the big rule changes, so this is the last thing we will see, this sort of shape that they are currently in.
Yeah, very much so. And also with these small tires and wheels. We'll have this sort of like mag wheel next year in Formula One, the 18 inch as opposed to the 13 inch, and this will be the last year that we'll see them in the skies. So I think all of the teams have done an outstanding job, and I really do believe these cars look something very, very special, very sleek and sexy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, recently, of course, we had pre-season testing for everybody to try out to see what works, what doesn't work. But for you, who stood out during testing for the good reasons, and who stood out for the bad reasons?
Okay. Yo, I tell you, to try and analyze this testing for the bad reasons, anything that came out of the mouth of Karen Chandok is just drives me up the wall.
I know you love him.
Um, for the good reasons, yeah, for the good reasons, it's so difficult to analyze that testing. It's 3 days of testing. It's more about reliability than anything else, and I suppose testing, the new flaws. But there were one or two things that did grab my attention, Barry. One was Max Verstappen. Just looked solid in that Red Bull. Looked confident. The car looked pretty decent from the moment that it went out, which was good. The other one that I picked up on, which I think was very, very gratifying to see, was the reliability of McLaren, considering they're the only team that have put in a new engine, meaning they've changed from Renault to Mercedes.
Yes.
And usually you do have some teething problems. So I'm hoping that they don't all of a sudden pick up some teething problems, although I do predict they might.
Yes.
Okay, it's just natural for it to happen. But McLaren looked very solid. Nobody's given too much away from the testing, Barry, but McLaren looked really, really good. They've got such an unbelievable team that they're working on. Andreas Seidel,
Yeah.
James Key, Andreas Stella, Zach Brown. Watch out for McLaren. The other thing, I suppose, who's the dark horse of the season? Could it be Ferrari? It's not often that you would say, could they be the
Yeah.
dark horse? But after the terrible season that they and their customer teams had in 2020 because of them not having the power of the Ferrari engine, the impressive side was Kimi Raikkonen coming out on day one and putting up a very, very respectable time in the first couple of minutes of testing, which took hours for other teams to get there. Yes, we don't know what people were testing, but Ferrari could well be the dark horse. And whether you're a Ferrari fan or not, Formula One needs a strong Ferrari,
Yes.
and let's hope that it's up there and within the top three.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I don't know if it's true or not, but somebody who was within Ferrari some time ago apparently said that some their punishment in a way for the regulations that they overstepped was that they had reduced power. Do you think there's any truth to that for the reasons that they were just so poor last year?
Well, funnily enough, and I know it was Mika Salo who came out with that
Yes.
comment on Finnish TV, who's an ex-Ferrari driver. And if you watch the F1 Pitbox regularly, you would have heard me say that exact thing round about August last year. And I hypothesized by it by saying I have a very strong feeling that the FIA and Formula One said to Ferrari, in terms of their punishment, was listen, you are going to have to suck it up, and 2020, you're not going to have the power, and that is basically going to be your punishment. Yes, it's a hypothesis, but I don't see any other reason why Ferrari would have lost so much power from 2019 without it having been enforced.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we can only hope that things will get better for Ferrari for this season rather. But I want to touch on Red Bull and Mercedes specifically. Now, each year we hear that Mercedes aren't looking strong in testing, etc., and that Red Bull are looking good, but we know that Mercedes actually always hold their cards close to their chest during testing. So, do you think this year is any different?
Barry, when you look at the 2020 season, and of course we still live in this pandemic of COVID, so it was a crazy season. If a team, um, any team, and let's just look at Mercedes, has the time to develop something like the DAS system, the dual axis steering system, without having to focus too much on their engine power or the aerodynamic efficiency. It shows you how superior the Mercedes organization is. I think that answers the question. Yes, they might not have had a great testing from what we saw. Bottas most probably got the bum end of the deal in any case. However, it's Mercedes. They've won 7 years in a row. We don't know how much more power they've got in that Mercedes unit. So, what does the testing mean? There's no ways I can tell you that come this weekend for the first Grand Prix, Barry, that all of a sudden they're going to be sixth and seventh on the grid. There's no ways.
Yeah,
And Red Bull, I was very impressed with the way that they went. Don't forget, Barry, it's the last year for Honda. Even though that we know that Red Bull have structured a deal to buy the IP for Honda from 2022, and we'll see how long that lasts. But it will last, I believe, until the end of the 2024 season. So there's going to be a lot of investment from Red Bull, and I suspect Honda as well, going forward. Honda are going to go flat out to ensure that Red Bull have a challenging car. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Of course, they want to go out in a blaze of glory, but Red Bull know that if they, as Red Bull, do not deliver a vehicle, a car strong enough for Max Verstappen, they will lose Max Verstappen. End of
yeah.
story.
And also, I mean, do you think that this year is arguably their best opportunity to get most out of the car, especially now with the fact that Sergio Perez is also now in Red Bull, that ideally they have probably two of the best drivers on the Formula One grid to help them get right up there with Mercedes?
Yeah, you know what? I think the Perez switch is a gamble, of course, for Red Bull. Pierre Gasly is no slouch. Albon, unfortunately, I just think let himself down, and I think it was a mental thing more than a talent thing. But Perez has got tremendous experience. We know he's unbelievably fast, and if he can be up there with Max, so if the two Mercs are there, and then it's the two Red Bulls, then you got a fighting chance. Max cannot do it on his own, just as Lewis cannot do it without Valtteri. If
Yeah.
Lewis was at the front and you had two Red Bulls and Valtteri was 14th, 15th, it would be much more difficult for Lewis Hamilton. So they are really relying on Sergio Perez to step up, and I think he is the right person. I think they do need somebody with experience. Funnily enough, I say that as though Max Verstappen doesn't have experience. I mean, he's going into his seventh season of Formula One, yet, but the guy is dynamic. So, if Perez can push Max, I mean, who knows where Max can go?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's going to be tremendously exciting for us watching at home. But I also
Yeah.
want to touch or keep on touch with Mercedes, carry on talking about them. But specifically for Lewis Hamilton, and I've got a little theory. I think he signed the 1 year contract with Mercedes for this year. And I think his aim is to get that eighth world championship, break all the records that he can, and then he will retire from F1. Do you think there's any chance that that might be the case?
Phew, I still think Lewis Hamilton has got a lot to offer to Formula One, and I still think he's as hungry as ever. So the reasoning behind this 1 year deal could well be twofold. He might want to decide to try and go and win a championship with another team. The connection between Toto Wolff and Aston Martin is very, very strong. He's also good friends with Lawrence Stroll as well. Um, uh, Aston Martin didn't have a great test session, but we can't really read too much into that. Uh, you know, I, I think there are different reasons why he signed a 1 year deal, as opposed to just for him maybe going to retire. I think Lewis Hamilton wants to get to like 10 world championships,
Yes.
if possible. And if Mercedes are still as powerful as they were in 2020 and back to 2014, and nobody can really challenge them if they're driving at 9/10 of the car, compared to if Lewis is driving at 9/10 of the car and Max is driving at 11/10 of the car, it's not really a fair fight. So I'm not entirely sure the reasoning behind Lewis's 1 year deal. There could be great merit in what you say, Barry, that perhaps he'll have enough and maybe go and um, become more of an activist and a philanthropist in his next career. But he doesn't look tired to me, that's for sure.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think if he can, he'd just want to smash the records that
Mm.
exist there because I feel like he's that kind of person. And funnily enough, I've been watching a few older Grand Prix over the last few days, and I mean, even when Mercedes went at their height, even when he was at still McLaren, you do forget that he is just absolutely talented.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the guy is just a really, really fantastic racing driver. Gives it his all of the time, fully committed, and that's the way that Lewis is. So, anybody who is not a fan of Lewis, is entitled to be not a fan. But you cannot deny his incredible talent and his skill.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of talent and skill, we've spoken about some of the teams during testing. Who are some of the drivers that stood out for you during preseason testing?
Well, George Russell. George Russell, I think, is just a supreme talent. He really is a magnificent racing driver, and all of a sudden, on one of the days, I think it was in the final day, he hustled that Williams and got into sort of like the top 12. Yes, the times don't mean anything, but somewhere along the line, it has to have some kind of a bearing. So George, I think Williams has to be on and up. They're definitely not going to be the worst team out there. I can tell you that this year. I know who the worst team out there is going to be, and that's going to be the Haas team, unfortunately. But George really impressed me. Yuki Tsunoda, I think, is an exceptional talent, and he has this wonderful, I suppose, benefit, which he brings to Alpha Tauri, and that is that he's so light, and he's short.
Yes.
And when it comes to building a racing car, it's all about weight.
Mm.
So because he's most probably, or Alpha Tauri's most probably got 15 or 20 kilograms of weight to play around with, they will be able to shift this around that Alpha Tauri to try and get an exceptional balance for this young kid. So I think watch out for Yuki Tsunoda. For other drivers, whether they impressed me or didn't impress me, as I say, so difficult to tell. But it was great to see Fernando Alonso back, and he looked
Yes.
competitive. He looked hungry. The car looked pretty decent. Um, and you could see the fire was there. So it
Yeah.
was great to see Alonso back wanting to go out there and race.
No, absolutely. I think it's absolutely great that Fernando is actually back in F1. It's strange how you actually realize, geez, I really missed the guy. But I
Yeah.
think he's going to really push that Alpine for this year.
I think, it's also so cool, Barry, is you've got Alonso, Raikkonen, and Schumacher. I
Yeah.
mean, you could be, you could be forgiven for thinking that you were in the early 2000s.
And there's also a statistic that I read that for every time that the season opener was held in Bahrain, that Fernando Alonso was on the podium. So who knows what could happen this weekend?
Give Fernando a decent machine, and we all know the guy's capability and the guy's talent. It's just known. He really is an exceptional racing driver.
Yes, absolutely. Now, looking forward, I think towards the end of the season, we've got, of course, a new race happening in Saudi Arabia. And our Formula One
Mm.
has, of course, released a video, sort of a rendering of what the track will look like. What do you think about the track? And more importantly, do you think it'll provide some decent racing for us?
I've looked at it, Barry. It allows one overtaking opportunity. Um,
Yay.
street circuit racing is notoriously difficult to overtake on. Um, there is one thing that does scare me, and we've seen it in Azerbaijan,
Yes.
at Baku, is the speeds that these cars can get to with these narrow circuits, with walls all around them. I find it incredibly dangerous. Monaco's been around there forever, but they don't get up to these kind of speeds. They're
Yes.
talking Saudi Arabia, 350, 360 kilometers. That's great if you're going down the back straight towards the Parabolica in Monza,
Yeah.
or down the main straight at Monza. I wouldn't be that comfortable doing 360 kilometers knowing that there's walls on both sides of me and they are that close. If they're that far away, makes life a little bit easier. It looks like an interesting circuit. I'm sure that they've done all of their theoretical
Yeah.
testing as what can and cannot happen. From me looking at it, I saw there's one major opportunity for overtaking. Somebody makes a mistake, you might be able to catch him on a long run somewhere. But yeah, let's just wait and see. I hope it goes well, and I hope everybody goes there for the right reasons as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and it's a night race as well, if I'm not mistaken. So if anything, it should be spectacular.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, we've seen it. Any form of night racing is very special, especially with these beautiful cars.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, Sasha, thank you so much for speaking with us. But I want to touch on one more thing. For anybody who
Mm.
has any interest in the Formula One, how do they tune into the F1 Pitbox that you, of course, host every Thursday evening, I believe, or Wednesday evening? One of the two.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, the F1 Pitbox is every Thursday before Grand Prix, hosted by myself with Gary Formato. It's available on my YouTube channel, Sasha Martinengo. Otherwise, it comes through on Facebook Live through F1 Sasha, and you can follow me on all social media at F1 Sasha, and from there you'll pick up all of the updates. And yeah, tune in because we
Yes.
have a lot of fun, and hopefully we impart the years of knowledge, as you can see, of Formula One to the fans and to ourselves.
Yeah, naturally. I've also got my F1 Pitbox cap on.
Ah, that's
So
very kind, Barry. Yeah,
So I'll
lovely,
be
man.
sure to tune in as well. But Sasha, thank you so much for chatting with me this afternoon. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to the first race for so long, and hopefully we'll chat after the race as well to see what happened.
Well, I think we should, Barry, because then at least we'll have an understanding of what actually testing taught us, or we got it right, saying we learned nothing.
Exactly. Well, Sasha, you must have a great evening, and thank you so much for chatting with me.
Always a pleasure, Barry. You look after yourself and keep on doing what you're doing.